Welcome to Bad Dog Agility, a podcast helping you reach all of your dog agility goals. Whether it's competing under the bright lights of the televised finals at Westminster or successfully navigating a homemade course in your own backyard, we'll bring you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. The show starts with your hosts, Jennifer, Esteban, and Sarah.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 357. Today's podcast is brought to you by hitaboard.com and the new Teeter Teach It, an easy-to-use tool that controls the amount of tip on your teeter so you can introduce motion to your dog in a gradual way. Go to hitaboard.com for the new Teeter Teach It and other training tools and toys. Use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hitaboard.com. Today, we've got a checklist for your next big event. And we were talking about, we've got several big events coming up. We've got Westminster. We've got the AKC National Agility Championship. We've got the UKI Invitational. All of these events are kind of coming up in the next, 2 or 3 months. And so we wanted to give you a quick checklist rundown of things that you should be doing to prepare for these events. So we're just going to jump right in with our first tip, which is read the entire premium. So go ahead, Jen.
This is one that almost is kind of like a pre-event. So this is, we're kind of going in order here, the things that you want to start with, because read the entire premium. I'm big on this as well. I mean, this is when it's released. This isn't after you enter necessarily. This is the big event checklist, read the premium, know the rules. Exactly.
So I'm a big rule reader. I think part of it comes from a computer science background. I'm always kind of looking at the edge cases and how to get the most out of my time and energy. And so I like to read the entire premium. But I think that everybody should do this. You need to be familiar with all of the rules. Not just the rules of, like where to potty your dog and things like that, but the structure of the event. How do you get to finals? How many dogs go to the finals? How many clean runs do you need? Are there breed differences? So, we look at an event like Westminster coming up. And I hope everybody going to Westminster realizes that it's a bit of a breed showcase. So in that particular event, to get to the finals, they take the top 3 dogs, no matter what breed they are. But then after that, they only take one of each breed. So that's like an example of a very specific format that's very specific to that event. And you should know about before you go.
Ooh, I'll tell you something related to Westminster I just thought of. I was not a premium reader back in the day and kind of relied on other people telling me what was going on at the trials. Anyway, Westminster final, you can have refusals. Isn't that right, Jen? Whereas in the preliminary rounds, I think they're judged a little bit differently. So you kind of need to know what the rules are, because you may be thinking, oh, I'm out. My dog just refused and made a mistake, but not the case.
Yeah, I was thinking that in terms of the read the premium. Yes, where to potty your dogs, where to park, but the scoring. And even if it's not just how to make the finals, but exactly, finals is time to beat scoring. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the preliminary rounds. And even in the preliminary rounds, if we're talking Westminster specifically, a refusal is scored different than in off course, and dogs with faults can make finals. So knowing the scoring rules there. I always think to read the entire premium, if anybody's gone to an AKC event, it's the part where to bring black bottoms. They put in there every time, make sure you're ready with black bottoms if you make finals, black shorts, black pants, black skirts, because that's where I've seen people show up in their bright pink bottoms because they didn't read the premium to know to have their black bottoms if they made finals.
That's right. And prepare to make the finals. That's like a bit of the mental game right there, right? We talk about like the AKC National Agility Championship. I've seen people that left because they thought they were out and had to have their friends call them because they'd made the challenge round because they didn't understand,
the rules
around the challenge round. So tip number 1, read the entire premium. All right. Tip number 2 for preparing is look at least 1 year's courses for that particular event. So this will just kind of give you an idea of the type of courses you're likely to see. And of course, every year is different and the judges are going to have a lot to do with what you see. But I do think that there can be some trends that you see within a particular event. So again, I'll take AKC National Agility Championship. We often see a broad jump at the National Agility Championship. We rarely see a broad jump in our regular master's classes. So that's something that if you looked back, 2 or 3 years, you would see and you would make sure that you were prepared for.
I think even something like ring size, that's helpful to know. I know traditionally in the past, going back to Westminster, there's been odd ring sizes at Westminster relative to local events. They've been more narrow and long, especially the year it was outside and it had to fit under a tent. So those might be dimensions that you're not used to. Maybe you're used to the very traditional square 90 by 90, and now it's 130 by 65. So looking at the previous year's events, assuming it's at the same location, will give you an idea of some differences that you might have, or even just where you're going to enter and exit the ring. That might be a little bit different than what you're used to at a normal show.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So once you've looked at previous events maps, I would look at maps from the upcoming judges. So this is something that we do for our NAC prep course and our invitational prep course. And if there's anything that I've learned 10 years looking at judges is they do have trends. You don't always, see exactly the challenge that you're going to see, but sometimes you do. Sometimes you will identify a challenge that a particular judge tends to like to put in their courses, and it gives you an edge if you have looked and then prepared for that particular challenge.
I think this is huge, and arguably looking through the list that we've come up with, it's almost kind of like, for me, the big one, the main one, looking at courses, studying courses, finding trends. If you have the ability to, setting them up and practicing them. But even if you don't have the space, this is one of the ways that you can learn and improve and be prepared without access to equipment in the field, is knowing the trends and knowing what to expect and saying, yes, I was ready for this. I know this judge always makes the double the first obstacle. That's their trademark move. Or they always use the broad jump, or they love to use a 10-foot straight tunnel. And over the years, I've put more and more and more value in studying the courses from the upcoming judges for any event, whether we're talking, like you said, Westminster NAC Invitational. I have in the last 6 weeks run courses from judges that will be at all 3 of those events.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just recently added what we called scouting reports for judges to our prep courses. And I had people email me after the event and say that they saw multiple of the, the little things that we pointed out that were kind of unique to a judge. They saw multiple of those at the invitational, last month. So, we know that it's very helpful. All right, next tip is to brush up on your routines. So I'm thinking your warm-up routine and your visualization / mental management routine. And this is something where I think if you don't have a good routine, now's the time to create one, to really think about like how you're going to get your dog out of their crate, how you're going to warm them up, how you're going to keep them occupied. Every dog has kind of a different amount of how much you need to keep them occupied, right? Like some, you can just have them on the end of the leash and, go hang out with your friends all day long. Some you have to carefully weave through the crowds because, maybe they're not a fan of, people or noise or other dogs or whatever. But you're going to have a routine. And it's something that I think is really important to get down before the big event. So I think, and especially when it comes to mental management, I think a lot of people think that maybe they don't get nervous at local trials. And so they are like, okay, I need to be on top of my mental game at nationals. And I would say, no, you don't want to suddenly be doing something different at nationals. You want to be on top of your mental game, even though you may not need it to the same extent. You want to do the same things at your local trial. You want to sit back and do your visualization. You want to imagine yourself running the course and practice that at your local trials so that it's really sharp and ready for the big event.
I think this goes hand in hand with number one, which was read the entire premium, because you're going to have to make adjustments to your routines, right? And so I think that's something that really freaks people out. It reminds me of that movie. What was the one with the dogs, the dog
Best
show?
in Show with
And
the busy bee.
Busy Bee, and the dog had the Weimaraner, right? It had the toy and it
Yep.
needed just that toy. And the owners went crazy. They're like, they absolutely need this toy. So you're going to have to make some adjustments, but you're not going to know about those adjustments if you don't take a look at the premium, look at the layout, and you realize, oh, there's 6 rings and I'm going to have to go from here where my crate is to this ring over here. And that's going to take me 5 minutes. Whereas at every local trial I've ever been, crating is 30 seconds from the gate. Right. So that's an entirely different routine when you have to count for the extra 4.5 minutes that you need to go. Another thing that you might see is after the walkthrough at a local trial, they may be like first dog on the line. In fact, the first couple people might even duck out of the last minute or two of the walkthrough. But at a national event, oftentimes you're going to get a big 10, 20-minute gap where no one's doing anything ringside. That's a great opportunity for you to extend your visualization routine, right? Take an additional 5 minutes right there and mentally rehearse going through the course several times. So you do need to check out the premium, and you also got to be able to roll with the punches a little bit and adjust once you get onto the site, right? Especially if you have routines involving taking walks, decompression walks around there. Jen, what are some things people should be thinking about?
So the one that always comes to mind and actually has kind of lived through me recently is, this one's you might laugh on this one, getting your dog to poop on leash. If you show locally, like I do, I rarely travel for shows, right? So I'm showing this weekend. I wake up in the morning, put my dogs in the backyard, and they're like, they're fine. They go out, they poop, they do the thing. And then all of a sudden you're in Westminster and like New York City, and you're on leash and you're stressed and you're like, go poop, come on, you need to go poop. And the dog hasn't pooped on leash in God knows how long, because you never have had to have them poop on leash, and they're nervous and they need to go into the bush and they need to hide. And next thing you know, you're 20 minutes behind schedule because your dog won't poop. So I always kind of laugh at this one because an incident came up about that last year. But hey, if your dog needs to poop on a leash, make sure you practice pooping on a leash.
Yes, absolutely. And we have a post and a podcast about visualization for big events. So I will put those in the show notes for this podcast. So if you are listening to this on our website, they'll be right there. If you're listening to it elsewhere, if you go to baddogagility.com/357 for episode 357, then that'll take you to the show notes, and there will be links to that there.
Yeah,
All right.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Yep.
Hearing Jen talk about that, I realized that when I was at Westminster and when I'm at many big events, I have kennel help. So there are people helping me. When I was running the Golden, she was a co-own, right? So she has an owner, and that owner was taking care of those kinds of things for me, right? So that's super convenient for me, takes a lot off of my plate. Well, it turns out that a lot of other people are in similar situations, not where they're running someone else's dog, but where they may have a partner, a spouse, or someone that they made the trip with who is also traveling, but maybe for the challenger round or the finals, that person can help them do some things, right? So coordinating with another person, having worked with them previously, especially if you have a non-dog spouse. So that by that, I mean someone who doesn't run agility. So maybe don't let that be the very first time you enlist your partner to help you out at a trial, kind of put them through the paces at a local event. But I think that goes back to kind of give everything a dry run in advance at a local trial.
Absolutely.
Everything that you want to try.
Yep. And the last tip is, and this is the one that comes closest to the event, is to read through the entire schedule. So the schedule is going to come out a lot closer to the event. You're going to want to look at it to know, when you're going to be running, most likely, which rings and things like that. But I think it's also helpful to kind of set your own expectations about your day. So some of these days can be really long. They can be really exhausting. And I think that it's always easier to deal with adversity when you're expecting it rather than when it's sprung on you. So I think about running for exercise running. I'm not a fan of it. I do it because, it makes me healthy and stuff like that. But if I think I'm running a mile and suddenly Estevan's like, hey, let's do another mile, I get really grumpy. Right?
Really grumpy.
But if he says we're going to do 2 miles, then I lock in and I can do it. So like setting those expectations for yourself, I think can just smooth things over at an event where things are not always going to be on time, where there's, can be very, very long days. So if you've already read through and already kind of recognized, okay, well, I have a run at 6 a.m. and I have a run at 6 p.m. at this particular trial, and kind of plan for it, maybe give yourself a nap or make sure that you go get some food or whatever, but it's coming, then I think you can handle it better. And then that will keep your mental state where you need it to be to do the best you can on course.
I agree wholeheartedly. There's nothing more than thinking you're going to be done with the show at 2:00 because that's what the schedule says. And then all of a sudden, or that's what you're thinking in your head. And then all of a sudden you're done at 5:00. It's like, if you can be prepared, if you can know, I'm with you, Sarah, just tell me I'm running 2 miles.
That's right.
I'll just moan and groan and complain about it, but I know I'm doing the 2 miles. Don't add it on. And again, it allows you time to prep and prepare. Do I have time to run back to the hotel? Do I have time to run and grab a bite to eat? Versus not having looked at it in advance and not knowing how the walkthrough schedules would work, that you would have to walk in this ring first, but then run in a different ring first. Not knowing those things until that moment can definitely throw things off. And everybody handles those changes a little bit different and copes with them differently. But the more you can read through all that information that comes out close to the event, the schedule or any last minute announcements, apps you need to download, information that's going to be given, the more prepared and the better you're going to feel about everything.
Yeah, I think for any big event, you have two broad categories, right? It's all the agility stuff that you and your dog know and do very well. You might have to make some adjustments there. We've talked about that. And everything else is what you guys are talking about right now, and that's logistics, right? It doesn't really have to do with the agility, but has a huge impact on your ability to perform, right? Because it might interfere with visualization or your ability to show up at the ring on time or early enough where you're not flustered and you're able to mentally get in the zone or get your dog into the zone or get your dog away from dogs that are staring at him or her or whatever, right? And so it's what you know, but just at a big national event where there's multiple rings, different buildings perhaps, different schedule, it could throw you off your game. And so don't let it. But preparation is how you defeat that.
That's right. And so those are our tips. And these are not for any one event, but this is for any event that you're going to, that you care a lot about. Anything that you would consider a big event, whether, no matter what organization, whether it's tryouts, whether it's invitational, whether it's a national championship, whether it's an ISC championship, you kind of want to take these same 5 steps. So just to do them super quick, it's read the premium, look at previous year's courses, look at maps from the upcoming judges, brush up on your routines, visualization and warm up, and read through the entire schedule. And so we hope that helps you at your next event. And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsor, hititboard.com. Happy training.
Thank you for listening to Bad Dog Agility. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, updates, and links to all our socials, just check out our website, www.baddogagility.com. If you haven't already signed up for our email subscription, we would love to have you join the BDA community. Until next time, take care.